Orchids and ashes.
The forests of Uttarakhand are plagued by wildfires every year, and 2020 was no exception. It is hard to say how the fire starts as there are several possibilities. It could come from shepherds attempting to grow new grass at a faster rate, concerned farmers hoping to bring rain, villagers wanting to clear the trails, illegal timber extraction activities, and droughts. According to research, almost every fire in a forest is caused due to direct or indirect human impact, as natural fires are rarely found anywhere in India. Wildfire destroys biodiversity and has been causing an increase in temperatures across the northern parts of India. One early February morning, I checked the weather app and found Uttarakashi was in the red zone. The atmosphere was hazy with smoke in the air, becoming denser around the hills. The air was so bad that I couldn't go out running or hiking. Every evening, I saw monstrous flames burning new patches, which made me wonder if any greenery will be spared. Every other day, we planned to go on hikes, but the fire kept charring our plans. I had It had been a while since I had an adventure up on the hill. I finally decided to just go and see the damage up close. On an unusually warm February morning, my friend and I started to climb at 7 a.m. As we climbed higher up, the landscape changed considerably. The air had a smoky smell to it. The carpet of pine needles was almost burnt to ashes. The atmosphere was dry, while half burnt grass, charred animal carcasses, and smoldered trees formed this new hellish landscape. It was a truly devastating sight, and a lifeless gloom hung in the air. We continued to climb up for about 30 minutes, after which we began moving westward. The fire was still alive on small scattered patches of the ground. As we continued walking, my friend spotted a deer to our right. Looking in the direction of the deer, a small orchid plant caught our eye. To get a better look at it, we scrambled up the rocky slope. The underbrush around the trail and rendered the area clear of its thick growth. Perched high up on a tree, the orchid wasn't blooming, and so it was difficult to tell which species of orchid it was. We decided to keep a check until it bloomed. We were about to head back when we spotted another orchid plant, and then another, and another. Bunches of happy orchid plants littered the trees further up. None of them were blooming, but stood distinctly with their long, lively green leaves against the dull background. The stems hung low with the bloom remains still attached to the pods, which suggested that the plants bore flowers not long ago. The roots were a mix of stumpy, dry looking outgrowths firmly attaching the plant to the tree, with protruding white, long, aerial roots to absorb nutrients from the air. I closed my eyes and thought how strikingly beautiful this part of the forest must have looked before the firestorm, when these flowers were in full bloom. The air around would have been filled with the crisp golden aroma of orchids. Moths at night, and beetles, bees, butterflies, and birds during daytime would have stopped to feed and say hello to one another. The trees must have been beaming with their new embellishments. What a sight to behold! It was remarkable that all this time on our previous orchid hunt adventures, we were crossing the trail oblivious to this treasure of orchids. If it wouldn't have been for the fire, the orchids would have remained hidden. Then, as if to join us in our eureka moment, another barking deer showed up, surprisingly around a burning tree stump. It watched us and stayed for a moment before disappearing into the wild. This new discovery gave us a much needed rush of adrenaline, and we hopped off on the trail. As we continued orchid hunting, we found a variety of epiphytic orchids, trees lush with beautiful pink and white foxtail orchids, broken looking leaflets supporting fragrant yellow and purple striped blooms, and brown orchids looking like floating boats. We hit a bonus when we found our first terrestrial orchid that looked like an egret soaring high in the sky, and I couldn't wait for this new patch to bloom and shine. At first, it looked like the fire devoured everything that stood in its path, choking the wild land. Although it caused so much destruction, in the process, I learned an important lesson in looking on the bright side of situations. The start of our day wasn't as lively and interesting with all the damage that surrounded us, but there is always a silver lining that reminds us to keep on hoping, and sometimes it takes a firestorm to find it.